All right, great. Looks like we are live. Welcome everyone to the inaugural OpenJS Foundation's Cross-Project Council meeting. It's a bit of a mouthful. Do we want to, we have 13 folks on the meeting today. Since this is the first official meeting, do we want to go around the table real quickly with some introductions? Does that make sense?
Sounds good to me.
All right, cool. I will kind of list them off, folks here in my panelist list. So Brian, can you go first? Brian Warner?
Absolutely. Yep. Hello, everybody. This is Brian Warner. I am the Program Director for OpenJS Foundation at the Linux Foundation, and I am here to help.
Thanks, Brian. Miles Borens?
Hello, I'm Miles. I'm on the Node.js Technical Steering Committee and have been the Node.js Technical Steering Committee Director on the Board of Directors. I've been involved throughout the whole Bootstrap process, and I'm excited to be here. I guess my current role would be as an observer based on the current bylaws.
Cool. Thanks, Miles. Rachel Romoff?
Sure, this is Rachel. I'm PR Manager for the OpenJS Foundation, and I am also here to help.
Great. Thank you, Rachel. Manil Chowdhury?
Hi, folks. My name is Manil. I'm a developer advocate at Envision, and I come from the Node.js project. Been involved with the Bootstrap process, and I think currently my role is as an observer.
Thanks, Manil. Matteo Collina?
Hey, I'm Matteo. I'm a member of the Node.js Technical Steering Committee and a voting member of the new Cross-Project Council. Hooray! I'm also Technical Director at Nearphone.
Thanks, Matteo. Michael Dawson?
Hi, I'm IBM's Community Lead for Node.js, also on the Technical Steering Committee and currently acting as the chair. Was quite active in the Bootstrap Committee. And currently I'm an observer, but looking forward to becoming a regular member.
Great, thanks, Michael. Anton Molita, if that's right?
Yes, so I'm a dev in Microsoft, and I'm part of the DSC of the WebHint project.
Great, thank you. Ben, is it Mitchell?
Yep, you got it right. in the States, at least, it's French. Mitchell, you know. Anyways, I'm Ben from Envision, and help out with the Node.js project and the community committee and other areas. I'm really excited to be a part of this this project, and currently an observer. Looking forward to membership and helping out as we move along.
Great, thanks, Ben. Christian Bromann.
Yeah, hello. This is Christian, software engineer at Sauce Labs and core contributor of the Web.io project.
Thanks, Christian. Emily Aro?
Emily Aro, if you can hear me.
Yeah,
hi, developer at Vincent, a smallish Finnish consulting company, but here mainly, well, here because I'm the main maintainer for message format at the moment. I like doing stuff in open source projects, in particular with JavaScript localization stuff, which, as it turns out, is not that big a field when you get down deep enough into it.
Great, thanks. Chris Borchers?
Hello, I am currently a program manager at Microsoft and formerly executive director of the JS Foundation and now representing the Architect project.
Great, thanks, Chris. I see a couple attendees in waiting as well, but next up is Rich Trott.
I am on the Node.js Technical Steering Committee, and I work at the University of California in San Francisco. And I'm not sure if what the requirements are for an observer, so I'm either an observer or a meeting crasher.
Well, welcome regardless. I see Jory Burson has joined as well. You want to do a quick introduction, Jory?
Yeah, hi everyone. Jory Burson here. I am helping the OpenJS Foundation get bootstrapped as just a staff member, and I am essentially here to be a little bit of a concierge for you guys and observing, I guess, is my capacity today.
Great, thanks, Jory. Brian Cardell. Can you quick intro, if you wouldn't mind?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, sorry, I was having some difficulty connecting.
No worries.
Yeah, I'm Brian Cardell. I am acting as the AC rep currently for W3C, and I work for Igalia in my day job as developer advocate. And yeah, I don't know what else to say.
That's perfect. Thank you, Brian. And then Aguirre as well.
Hello, I'm Aguirre. I currently serve on the Node.js Comcom, and today I'm going to be an observer for this greater project.
Thanks, Aguirre. I think I got everyone. Excuse me, except myself. I'm Joe Sepi. I am a voting member of the CPC from the Node.js Comcom Community Committee. I am an open source engineer at IBM, and I am happy to be here. If I missed anyone, please let me know. Otherwise, we will get into business here. Do we have anything we want to mention before we get into agenda items? If not, I will jump into it. So first thing on the list is nominating chair and director, issue 179. I'll paste this in here. And let's see. So yeah, we need to nominate both the chair and the director. There is the opportunity for that to be one person if so desired. I think it makes sense for us to probably have two, but let's discuss. Does anybody want to take the lead on sharing more context about this issue?
I think it would be swell to start with maybe a quick description of the role of the chair versus the role of the director.
That is a good idea. Is anyone really familiar with that? I can read through the charter here if we want.
I could give sort of an overview, my understanding from what we've done in the Node project, if that helps.
Sure.
Okay, so I mean we have the same division in the Node project between a chair and a director representative. So the chair is responsible for making sure that the regular meetings take place, helping to build the agenda. Often gets pulled into sort of more meta issues in terms of things going on in the project, if there's issues or conflict or other things, or often the foundation might also reach out to them in terms of, getting things in place in terms of, say, best practices or that kind of stuff. On the other hand, the director is the representative for the group to the board, sits in the board meetings, acts as a board representative. Miles brings back, in the case of the TSC, information in terms of when the board meetings are, key things that were discussed that could be shared. There's also a board where he, where people can add in issues they'd like to be taken to the board, which he manages to then, bring those to the board, get them discussed, make sure they get discussed, and bring information in terms of the outcomes of those back. So it's the role of working with the board and making sure that in this case the CPC is aware of what the board is thinking and doing, and representing any issues that the CPC wants represented, which in this case would be probably on representation either for something at the CPC level or on behalf of one of the projects. And Miles can probably add a bit to that too.
Yeah, I guess kind of building on that, a couple of the thoughts regarding the director role. You have to wear a couple different hats. So, all of us in this room right now are wearing a combination of, the hats of us as individuals and our individual opinions, the hats of the projects that we represent, the hats of the organizations that we represent, if we do represent organizations. And when we come and approach all the different problems day to day, we kind of need to switch between those different roles and those different views. Now, one of the biggest challenges of being a director that's a community elected director is that you're bringing a couple different hats to different situations. So when you are going to the board, you would be representing the cross-project council, and in turn, then representing all 31 of the projects within the foundation. Then at the board, you will have to find that balance between representing the council's viewpoint, representing the thoughts and viewpoints of individual projects, as well as representing your own opinions. And the board will always have things, whether or not we want them to be, that may be embargoed or maybe board sensitive information. And there's all sorts of different reasons why that may come up, from fiscal to legal to timing. And as a board member, you're going to have access to a little bit more information than necessarily the other groups that you're working with. And you'll be working with trying to figure out, A, how do you help bring that information to those groups? But also, how do you make decisions where you may have more information than the other groups in which you're representing? And in general, it's really important that when you're at the board and you're representing the projects, that you are not just representing your own viewpoint, but it will be necessary to make decisions. So if it sounded confusing, it is because it is confusing. It's a lot of work to find the balance there, and there is no right or wrong. It's something that you figure out as you go. Another thing to keep in mind that's important to think about as a board member is you have a fiduciary duty to the foundation itself. Being on the board creates a fiscal liability for yourself, and you and your number one priority while you're at the board is the long-term viability of the foundation itself. And that involves a new hat, which is the board hat, and finding a balance between what is best for the foundation, what is best for the projects, and what does that even mean with all of the context and knowledge that you have, you know, kind of as an ongoing balance. In general, I would say that you should expect anywhere between 2 to 5 hours a week of work on average, although that can really ramp up depending on what's going on in the ecosystem. But it is a full-time role in the sense that it does actively change your standing compared to your peers. So, you know, it creates a new power difference. You are part of conversations that other people can't be a part of. And, you know, this isn't meant to be a scare tactic or to push people away from doing it, but as someone who has kind of gone through this and experienced it, you know, I think that it would not be fair to not lay that out as well, that, you know, it puts you into a different place. And that comes at some social cost. But in my personal opinion, you know, if you have the time, drive, and interest in working on those kinds of problems, it can be extremely rewarding.
That's great. Thank you for all that context, Miles and Michael. We're already at 2:20, so I don't want to, and I don't know if we need to spend a lot of time further on this. It seems that we should figure out how we accept nominations and then how we conduct a vote on each of these positions, each of these roles. Is that laid out at all in the charter, or should we just follow kind of practices that we've had in the Node Foundation?
We do have some basic stuff in the charter.
Okay.
I believe that the charter outlines, actually I had put that in the issue. Let me just find it really quickly.
Yeah, I dropped it in the chat too. The section 7 of elections and the council.
I mean, I think it provides some guidance on the voting method, but not necessarily in terms of, you know, how people are nominated. Previously, I think we've worked mostly on, at least in the Node community, we've mostly worked on like a self-nomination model. Mm-hmm. And sort of with two different approaches. One, you know, in the TSC, it's been public. In the ComCom, it's been sort of an anonymous self-nomination, and then all of the nominees announced.
Okay.
So I'd suggest we pick one of those two. I mean, other people, it's sort of self-nomination, or other people can nominate people, but generally you'd need to get that person on board, obviously, before you nominate them. So
I just want to point out that it's often more challenging for folks from underrepresented groups to feel comfortable self-nominating. So I think I would prefer to advocate for a system where someone, where it doesn't necessarily have to be that person making the nomination, but they can consent to be nominated.
Yeah, I think that's always, I guess that's always been part of what we've done. The question is, do you want to make it that you require somebody else to nominate versus self-nomination? Because I could see that introducing a different dynamic as well.
So historically, Jory, I guess something that's worth bringing up is we did have a problem in the past where we had done peer nominations and someone nominated everyone from the committee. And then we were kind of back to square one. I'm not saying that will happen again, but I don't think we've ever, had an issue with peer nominations. There's no reason why, you and a peer couldn't, have consensus that the peer could then nominate you. Are you thinking that you'd rather have something along the lines of like anonymous nominations?
I'm just saying that whatever path we choose should include some, means through which another individual can nominate someone so that, we open up the pool.
Right, with their acceptance, obviously.
With their consent.
Yeah.
Yep.
I see no problem with that.
Yep. Plus
yeah,
one.
and I think that's consistent. I don't think we've ever said you couldn't nominate somebody else. It's just that we've allowed self-nomination as well.
That wasn't super duper clear on
the
issue, so that's why I raised it.
Makes sense. I guess the other thing, just to clarify in this case, I'm pretty sure the governance says that the nominees in this case need to be voting members.
Okay, it's good to call that out.
So essentially, it's one of us voting members.
Mm-hmm.
So there is not. I don't think there is not much to nominate really. But there is probably one or two people that want to do it. 3 people, 4 people. I don't know. But it's not that there is an infinite amount of candidates.
Yep.
Correct.
So
go ahead. Sorry.
Regarding the timing here, given that I've only met a couple of the people involved in this so far, Berlin is coming up soon. I at least will be able to make it there. I'd be much happier to make a more informed decision about what my opinion here might be if it was happening after Berlin.
That makes sense. Does anybody have an issue with putting it off until after Berlin?
I would like to suggest kind of halfway in between, in that like we already have the nominations open, and perhaps we could do something like close the nominations, like maybe Monday, June 3rd or Wednesday, June 5th. So keep them open, but wait until after Berlin to close the nomination period.
Yeah.
Does that fall in line with what you were suggesting?
Oh, yes.
Great.
So if we wanted to just be like really clear about it, I would say that like perhaps we should close the nominations. I would suggest that we could close the nominations on the 5th and have a decision by the 19th. We have a board meeting this Friday. Obviously, we're not going to have someone in place by then. And then the next board meeting is June 21st. So if we could have someone nominated by the 19th, they could participate in the board meeting on the 21st of June.
Miles,
elected by the 19th.
Are you serving? Are you and Tracy still serving up until we get the two new people?
I will not be. I am moving to take on Google's rep, and so we will be down one community elected position. Now, with that in mind, we still have both Tracy and Dave Methvin, and with the current bylaws, the way they're set up, there is one seat that only activates at the point that we have the individual membership program having a certain amount of membership. So even with my moving roles, I'll A, still be at the board and participating, and B, we'll still have the same number of community reps as we'll have after the transition. So I think personally that it's reasonable to maybe set a deadline for the 19th for both the node rep and the CPC rep, and we should be in a good position, in my personal opinion.
And that's the 19th of June? Yeah, okay.
All right. That all makes sense to me. If anybody has any objections, please speak up.
Brian, I'm sorry, just really quickly. Brian Warner from the Linux Foundation, if you could make a note for us to discuss this at the board meeting on Friday, just to make sure that this timeline and onboarding people for next month's meeting is okay with the board. We can come back with a response from the board for next week's meeting to confirm that like this plan makes sense from the board's perspective.
Absolutely. Yep, makes sense.
Thank you, Brian.
You're welcome.
How long do we want to have the election open for? Because then we might want to come backwards from having them elected by the 19th.
That's we were just saying the election could be open until the 5th of June.
So nominations are open until the 5th, then the election begins and ends by June 19th?
Yes.
Okay.
Great.
All right.
That would give us like, you know, just over 2 weeks for the election period, and then, you know, 2 weeks, 2 weeks for the nomination period, and then 2 weeks for the election period.
Okay. And the board meeting after that is on the June 25th, correct?
21st, I believe.
21st? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, great. Do we need to discuss the nominating process or the voting process here? Should we take that into an issue, or do we want to move on to the next agenda item?
I think we can punt on the voting process, and I think we had consensus around the nomination being self-nominated or pure nominated with consent.
Okay, and will we just do that in an issue, or do we want a more formal process for nominations?
We have an issue open right now. That seems fine.
I guess the one question we haven't answered, which is, you know, the TSC one, where like people would nominate themselves in the issue. In the ComCom, the model was it was a sort of private nomination. So that would be I think the next thing to confirm which of those two we want to use in this case.
My understanding was that we actually agreed to have any sort of nomination be fine.
Yeah, which is fine. Well, how does that work in practice in a GitHub issue? I can see it working easily in the ComCom model where it's more, you know, private, for lack of a better term.
Hey, Brian, would you be able to set up an alias nomination at OpenJSFoundation.org?
Sure.
Because then we could have an email alias to send nominations to as well, and then Brian or someone from the LF who's kind of independent can post those nominations in the thread, assuming that the person who's been nominated has been confirmed that they want to run.
Well, that's not actually quite the concern. The concern was that in the ComCom case, the people who were nominated were only posted after nominations were closed. And the subtle difference in the dynamic is, like, in one case you see who's already running, in the other case you find out altogether who's decided to volunteer.
So I mean, I would certainly be happy to collect nominations, whether we use a special alias or if it just goes to me, or could go to operations@openjsf.org. And if you'd like me to hold on to them and then prepare them and post them all at once, I understand what you're saying there, and whichever works, we can make it work on this end.
I mean, that seems simple enough. We can, people can email nominations, either self or for someone else through this alias, and then put them all out at once.
Yeah. And I'm certainly happy to be the neutral party.
Great. So if we could just drop that alias or the detail in that issue, then that would be great. And we can move on. All right, excellent. So moving on, unless anyone has anything else here. The next issue in the agenda is 178. This is start accepting nominations for regular members. Looking at the issue here, Miles comments that we should have a documented process and way to ensure project representation. And then there's a little bit about the governance, and I'll read this here that Michael posted in the issue. Regular members have made a commitment to be involved in an ongoing manner and take on roles and responsibilities as outlined below. Regular member is implied when membership type is not specified. Anyone who has been a member of one of the projects under the OpenJS Foundation for at least 3 months may request to become a regular member by opening a PR to add themselves to the list of regular members. Regular members remain for as long as they are active within the work of the CPC. Regular members who have not been active in GitHub, participated in meetings, or other work of the CPC for 3 months may be removed from the list of regular members. In addition, a regular CPC member can be removed by voluntary resignation or by standard CPC motion. Yeah, what?
I think at this point, I opened this mostly to say it's probably time to start accepting, people to nominate themselves. Miles did point out that we maybe need confirmation that the 3-month period has been met. I think I'd suggest that, we follow the simplest, which is, person opens a PR to add themselves in. We then expect the voting member from the project that they indicate their primary, they primarily come from to confirm that membership just through a comment. At which point, I think, based on what's there, it could just be landed and they would join as a regular member.
Yeah, I have no objection to that.
I will also invite everybody that has been part of the book committee to self-nominate.
Agreed.
Yep.
That's one.
Were you going to say something, Jory?
Yeah, I was just going to say, with the caveat to what Michael was saying, that there are going to be some people who would qualify as regular members, but they are from projects that are at large or growth projects that don't have a voting member. So I agree that there should be some sort of confirmation that, an individual really is part of a project community, but we just need to bear in mind that not all of our project communities have voting members.
Right. My thought on that, because I had thought of that, is we will have 1 or 2 voting representatives representing those projects, and I was thinking they might be able to take on
the task.
I see. Task of confirming it. Yeah.
I see. Yeah. Okay. I can see that.
I would say, kind of building on that, we do have, we have voting members from each of the impact level projects, and those individuals can be the point of contact for those projects. And then we have, I guess now it's 4 members from non-impact level projects. And yeah, I think it should fall to those individuals to be responsible for verifying that information, since they represent that body of participants.
Mm-hmm.
We might go, yeah, I agree. That's what I had in mind. I think to make that easy, we might go back and ask the at-large projects to provide a contact that those people can reach out to and basically say, hey, you can confirm this for me or whatever, just so that there's an easy path to figure out how that happens. But then having them do that as as an easily recognizable person as part of the CPC makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That all sounds good to me.
So where does the list of regular members go, folks?
That's a good question. I don't think we have that yet. I think, in the Node project, we have a list, of the TSC members and the regular collaborators on the main README. We could do something similar or have a special page that's dedicated to that. I think we just need to decide where that's going to go.
I'm drafting an update to the README right now. So the README that we have on the cross-project council page is still the Foundation Bootstrap team README. I should have that done hopefully in the next 5 or 10 minutes. And if we wanted to review it on this call, we definitely can. But I'm drafting that right now.
Great. Thank you, Miles. Depending on how quickly we can get through the rest of the agenda items, we'll take a peek at that.
It seems just more like a signal to noise thing. Like right now, there's only a certain amount of people who are involved, so having it on the initial README seems fine. If more and more people get involved, you may want to move it to a new README.
Agreed. Great. All right. I think we can move on unless anyone has anything else. The next agenda item is issue 172. This is new process for CPC reps to share responsibility for travel fund. This, you know, is maybe a little bit more complicated as that has the travel fund has been in the past, typically, I mean, it's been a part of the Node Foundation. And I believe the question is, does that go up a level to the OpenJS Foundation, or what is the best way to kind of manage the travel fund? And I think Matteo has a good comment here with the proposal, if you wouldn't mind kind of sharing your thoughts, Matteo.
Yes, I am. So it is the current situation. I think, so the vast majority of our travel fund, of the travel fund money of Node.js goes into supporting the Collaborator Summit, okay? And paying for travel for the Collab Summit. And this is more or less it's not just this item, but it's definitely the most probably valuable use of that, okay? And also it's everybody is, a lot of people has taken has leveraged this to go to the summit. Now this is also used to promote Node at conferences, to pay for the to reduce a little bit the strain on the conference themselves and pay for travel, okay? Especially for running code and learns, for example. However, I am of the idea that, so I think that there is a underlying question is if we want to have officialize the fact that we have an OpenJS Collaborator Summit, in which there is a Node.js Collaborator Summit, there is the Node.js project represented, but all the other projects, they can be represented as well. And in that case, we have, and in that case, then I think it feels natural to me that the travel fund for the summit, it's approved and managed by the summit organization. And whatever this means, this is to decide, okay? However, on the other side, we don't need to remove anything from the Node.js project. So, and I don't think we should. I'm still representing it. So I think some fund will need to be left there for the rest of the other activities that are covered. We need to gather some stats on what it has been used for, and so on and so forth, before making some calculations. And the major reason it's come from simplicity. So essentially, in this way, we are ensuring that a little bit of we are ensuring that there is a single source of truth. It's almost a single budget line for everything, and it's easy to allocate and manage. On the opposite side, there is the reverse proposal, which is more or less proposed by Rich. Which is Rich? Are you still here?
Yeah, I'm here, but you're doing great.
Yeah, if you. The Rich proposal, which is essentially to fragment the budget for every project, so that every project has a certain amount of money that they can use to go to.
Oh, I don't.
Yeah, I might jump in there in that. You know, one of the things I think we discussed, and I think would be good, is to see where we can actually push the sort of budgetary authority down to the projects. And the travel fund was actually one example of where we did that. So I kind of view it as it would still be good for the projects to be able to prioritize what they think is important. And I see obviously the summits being something that's important, but having the project say, here's our budget, like the Node.js Foundation had for the travel fund, and deciding to say, yeah, okay, this is this is important. We want to send all these people, or wait a sec, there's something else that's going on. We want to send the people to something else. Although, I mean, we haven't had any conflicts, but the concept of the ownership being with the project, I think in my mind at least, and obviously I'm just one person, but in my mind lines up better with our, model of the CPC is there to help the projects, but not necessarily to tell them what to do or what direction to go into or who to send to a summit or not, right? So that's just my perspective, is that I'd prefer that the projects, now I can see that sharing a travel fund, so not every project may want a travel fund, and maybe even the Node project doesn't want to have its own travel fund. So being able to opt into something where the CPC would manage that for a project makes a lot of sense to me. But I'd still see that being like a choice that the project could make, as opposed to us saying, we're going to have a different set of people reviewing and approving the people who are requesting to travel.
So one thing that I think is worth adding here, I don't think that we necessarily need to think too far ahead of everything. Every single project within the foundation is encouraged to be like self-sufficient. So I think to Matteo's suggestion that he had made, if we want to continue to run the collaborator summits and run them not just as Node collaborator summits, but as OpenJS collaborator summits, it makes a ton of sense to me that the travel budget be specifically for that program and managed by that program. And then if individual projects want to have a travel fund for things that they want to do, I see no reason why they can't come and request budget from the CPC, which in turn then can become a budget request to the board of directors. One of the things that I think we'll start to kind of tease out of this, though, is like, what is the difference between an impact level project and a non-impact level project? And perhaps, there's a travel fund that's managed for non-impact level projects, and then impact level projects can have their own budget. But I don't know if it makes sense for us to over-optimize for situations that we haven't seen yet, and rather we should make it really clear and easy for projects to be asking for what they need.
Yeah, I agree. My only request is that we should actually ask the projects, and Node in particular, since it's had a travel fund, if it's happy to just have, the funds for the summit be moved over to the CPC versus, having managed it through the TSC and the ComCom. So I don't know actually what the answer will be on that case, but in my opinion, it's important to ask that question, whether, yeah, okay, that just makes sense to everybody and that's good, or not.
I wonder too about like earmarking travel fund budget. Like, for example, with Node, there's a history there. How much has been used for the different events and such? Can we earmark a similar amount and then have a pool beyond that is a little more opened up? I know it's a tough needle to thread here with the Node's history and using the travel fund at a variety of events.
Yeah, and I think in my mind the important thing is the consultation, right? Let's not change the model without getting some consultation from the project who has been using and managing it up to this point. And obviously we have a bunch of representation already, but I think going back to the CPC and the TSC, just to pull the feelings there would make sense in my mind.
So yeah, we have a bunch of people on the call who are not from the Node project. Does anyone who's not from Node who's on the call have opinions about this?
I always have opinions, but I don't have. I don't feel that I understand a lot of the problems and concerns well enough to feel super strong about a potential, solution.
So does it maybe make sense then that a next step that we could do here would be someone making a proposal. Like we still have the proposal process in place that we use through Bootstrap. Perhaps we need a proposal about the travel fund, and we can just have something more explicit that we can reference in the conversation.
I would actually do a proposal about the OpenJS, the summit, rather than the travel fund, and include that as its own travel fund for the summit.
I think as long as that clearly states what the impact to the existing fund would be, that.
Yeah, that was that. So for me, and this is a question for also both Node.js and the other project, in the sense is, do we want to have an OpenJS Collaborator Summit, or do we don't want to have an OpenJS Collaborator Summit? And these are more broad question to some extent than.
And I just think that we'll know a little bit more about the answer to that question after our.
Yes.
Yeah, totally. But that's, I think that's about, it's about time that, we had this experience, we're doing this experience in a couple of weeks, in a week, and we are going through that experience. And after we add to that experience, we can decide if we want to do that again or not.
Makes sense.
As someone coming from outside Node, I'm lucky enough to not need travel funds for my participation. But what I think I'm most concerned with is that I've currently got no idea where the money for the travel fund is originally coming from, and whether there are any concerns that need to be accounted for the fact that what it sounds like what we're talking about is making the Node travel fund now accessible by a wider group of people, and just want to make sure that this is not going to cause any transition pains about basically leaving someone or some people here feeling like those outsiders are taking our money or anything like that.
Yeah, that's definitely the challenge, part of the challenge that we're working through. Maybe somebody could even outline, how this has worked in the past, how much has been used, where the money comes from, and give some clarity to folks who are not a part of the Node project and are unfamiliar.
Well, very quick overview is that, on a yearly basis, the project requested a particular amount. The board would approve that amount. We have an admin repo that both the members from the TSC and the ComCom participate in. The process was generally to open a PR there, adding yourself into the travel budget, outlining, how much you needed for flights, hotels, and so forth. And then you needed 2 approvals from each of the TSC and the ComCom, at which point it could be landed. We have Tracy helping us keep an eye on how the funds that have been requested match up with the funds that we have available. It's always been the message that, if we needed more money for the project, we could go back to the board and ask for more, but obviously it's good to try and get, a reasonable number at the beginning of the year. I think we could say that has been mentioned, the bulk of the travel has been used for the 2 collaborator summits that we hold each year. Although it has also been drawn upon to go and represent Node at some other conferences. Is there anything I missed out on that?
That was really complete, Michael. I just want to add 2 points. The amount for 2018, as far as I know, was completely utilized last year. And another point, we had discussed earlier in the Bootstrap process, we had discussed what it would look like if the travel fund were to be accessible to other projects. And that consideration, Emily, is Emily? I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right. I didn't catch it earlier.
Don't worry about it.
That consideration is really helpful. We had discussed it, and there had been so far no objections to that being opened up to the larger project. Forgive me if I'm speaking out of turn, but that was my interpretation of the earlier discussions.
So the last thing I guess I forgot I should add is Rich did submit an addendum or a modification to our governance process, whatever it is, around the travel fund to make an exception for this collaborator summit so that other OpenJS members could take advantage of it as well. But that was added as sort of a one-off to defer, these kinds of discussions until later.
Totally. And I believe it has been utilized by other members. Is that correct, Michael?
I remember at least one request. Rich, can you confirm that one landed?
Yeah, it did. There's yeah, exactly one exception so far.
Great. I've thrown some links in the chat there to the admin issues, admin closed pull requests. You can scroll through and see some examples there, but I posted 2 examples of travel fund requests from the admin repo.
I also want to just gently nudge because we do have 3 more items to cover.
Yeah, I've been, cognizant of that, but I also think that these have been really good conversations to get through. So I suppose we should wrap up here on this issue, though. Matteo will draft something up for the Collab Summit, and we'll kind of go from there. So unless anyone has anything else to add, I will drop in the next issue here. This is issue 161, draft initial process for electing voting members from the non-impact projects. This was open 28 days ago. We decided for now to take in everyone who had been nominated. But we need to document the process moving forward for the next election cycle. Does anyone want to add more context to this? I see Michael Dawson, you have a comment, the last comment 12 days ago.
I think in the last meeting we said we would defer until we finish the bootstrap. I guess that's happened now. It's probably a matter of somebody just needs to write up a bunch of the discussion that we've had and put that into a proposal. But since that won't be for a year, there's not necessarily any super urgency to that.
Agreed.
But if somebody wants to volunteer to do that or has time to do that, whenever, otherwise, at some point, either myself or Nick can probably loop back on what we've written. But if anybody else has time in the meantime, feel free to pull that together as well.
Okay. Yeah, I agree that this isn't really a pressing issue. Since we're short on time, we'll kind of let this one play out over the coming weeks or however long. So I'm going to move on to issue 129, which is review meeting times. I also think that we don't really need to spend a lot of time on this. I think was the decision from the last meeting that we would discuss this in person. Looking at the spreadsheet together and with the voting members, what dates work best collectively, because it's a little bit hard to pull from a spreadsheet, some of the flexibility of some of the dates. So should we punt on this as well and discuss it more in person? Take the silence as a yes. Next issue is 115, which is the post bootstrap work to be managed by the CPC. This issue has been largely broken out into 2 projects, GitHub projects here that are managed. The first one appears to be fully closed. Everything, the steps to bootstrap CPC, everything is moved to the done column. So looking at the post bootstrap one here, we have a number of to-do items. A few of them were agenda items for today. With only 5 minutes left, does anyone have anything in here that we want to touch on or discuss further?
I'll just move the first one over to in progress once I log in, because I think we're starting the nomination process.
Yeah, I can do that right now. Just dropped it. That one's in progress. Start accepting nominations for regular members.
Yep, I think that's in progress. The update, the README for voting members, I think Miles. So maybe, Miles, is there an existing issue for that, or?
I don't know if there's an issue for it, but I just opened the PR. It's number 182 that has the first pass at the README. There's for what it's worth, explicitly, there's a bunch of stuff in there that needs to be filled in. Please feel free to push to that PR. Do not think of it as something that I own. Everyone can collaborate on it.
Okay, so yeah, I just tagged that issue. I didn't convert it to an issue since you already have the PR. Actually, I should have said PR 182, but
we could remove the issue and add the PR to the project tracker.
That is true. Okay, we should do that.
One of these is ask projects to start updating references to docs in CPC repo, XCOC and things like that.
I think that one would be a good one to get into progress. Like, you know, we're talking about things like the code of conducts. I guess the other way to look at that is we had that checklist, right? So how do we start working through that checklist for existing projects? Like, do we ask each of the voting representatives from the projects to take ownership of saying, okay, we're now bootstrapped, and you know, we need to run through that for each project.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense to me. You know, voting members from the various projects to take that on as an action item.
And maybe what I'd suggest off the top of my head is if each of those people could open an issue and add it to the in progress one, just to sort of, you know, for the project to say, I don't know, whatever you want to call that, but bootstrap or onboarding list for, you know, project X.
Yeah, and how do we do that for the you know, non-impact projects, since folks will be, you know, representing more than one project?
Yeah, how many of those do? I'm just wondering. We have like 4 or 5 representatives. I forget off the top of my head how many projects it would be if we asked them to kind of open that issue for each one. Is that too much to ask, or is it that there's
maybe there's one kind of non-impact issue? Sorry, Jory, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna remind everybody for context. You know, we have 32 projects in the foundation, and that's quite a few.
Yeah.
So I think I would encourage us to say, let's have a goal of getting all of these projects onboarded in, say, the next, you know, 9 months, and, you know, help a few of them tackle their items, you know, at a time until we get all the way through. Because I think a lot of the project leads, you know, they specifically are at-large projects, for example, because they don't necessarily have the time to commit to participating at the CPC level the way that we do. And so I think we're going to be doing a lot of support of them and helping them meet the criteria as we figure that out. So I think I just would encourage us to not try and like eat the whole elephant by getting all of them going at one time, but rather, you know, let's get the impact projects done, and then let's get the growth projects done, and then let's get the at-large projects done, for example. So,
yeah, I think that's a really good idea, is to, like, you know, maybe just do the impact ones, and once we've done that and figured the process out, think about the others.
I wonder if we should have like some sort of onboarding issue template that has a checklist of things, and we can just kind of, you know, use that as we go through each project and have a checklist built in.
So we have some checklists and onboarding materials that like Miles and I have been working on through the proposal process. So if you're looking for something a bit more specific, I think it should probably kind of follow that.
Sure. No, that makes sense. So
I think Joe, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Michael.
I think what I thought you were just suggesting is we take that exact list and put it into a GitHub template.
Yeah, and then you can open an issue, use that like onboarding issue template, and then you have your checklist already, you know, auto-populated for you. So yeah, we'll try to get that done. I can maybe take that as an action item.
Folks, I got to go, so Yeah. Bye bye, and have a good day, night, whatever it is.
Bye, Matteo.
Yeah,
Stay for me.
I
Good talking
think,
to you guys.
yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're past the hour. We should probably just wrap up the meeting and pick up next week.
Yep, I think that's that sounds good. I think we got a lot done. Thank you everyone for joining, and we'll wrap up.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Woo,
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.